You have been told many lies of Middle-earth.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are back for another recap and review. This is episode 1 of The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Fire. I am just a sub today. Our person that is going to be overviewing and facilitating all of these after shows is Nat. Nat is out of town, so I am going to be facilitating this as the lead today, but I'm going to bring the other fellow panelists here and host. What's going on, gentlemen? Jorge and Mike.
What is going on?
Mike, what happened to you, man?
He's recovering.
What's oh the sheer disrespect. You know what? I'm not gonna do that. So you guys, if you have not seen the first episode, go and check it out right now because this is a spoiler-filled discussion. We've already released our non-spoiler back and forth from what we thought about it. You can go and watch that right now without getting spoiled of anything. But we're about to go into full spoilers of episode 1, where we dissect all the different things right now. So here we go. So just really quick, me and Jorge, we saw it and we were in awe of everything we saw. Not just the production of it, but everything about it. So for you, Mike, we just had a discussion with you with another show that's in the second episode, and you've only watched this first episode. What was your feelings going in and coming out of this episode? I'm really curious. You can share your highlights of why you feel the way you do as well.
That's it. It's beautiful. I mean, it's gorgeous. Like, I don't know what else you can say. It's like money well spent, but the way you're watching almost a theatrical experience on a small silver screen, and it's almost like you don't even deserve this. It's like, right, we made a comments like this not even full HD. We're watching, so it's like I encourage anybody, if you watch this, get on your HD, televisions and stuff like that. Please do. This is content that's well deserved for it. Yeah, it's beautiful. It's beautiful.
So he just finished watching it, you guys. So we're gonna be picking a lot of stuff apart in threads. One of the things that I thought was really awesome is I went back and rewatched The Fellowship of the Ring, and one of the things I found very interesting, it was a very interesting parallel to how there was an open monologue that was happening and narration of how things started, like how the beginning things of why the ring was created and all this and that. And the interesting thing about this show, it takes place roughly about 1,000 years before, I believe, Fellowship of the Ring. But either way, it still goes through parts of the war that we hadn't really kind of seen or gone through a different focal lens. Because the main character, which I'll go into her in a little bit, is we first see her. She's going and just chilling. I think she had made a line where the first sunset hadn't even started yet, and she's, enjoying life, but she's already being ridiculed by different people that look differently at her. And so she has a little boat, and her brother lets her know something, whispers into her ear something that we find out much later on about life and how to navigate through it. And of course, he goes and fights the big evil, which is Sauron. Now, the thing about this that I thought was amazing was that was when I realized that the fight choreography and the cinematography are amazingly immaculate and detailed on the level that it looked like a movie on screen. You guys, so the introduction to this, and I think me and you, Jorge, talked about it. We couldn't bring it up in the non-spoiler, but the intro to this, the first 5-10 minutes from her little story all the way to her defeating the ice troll was epic. But I was curious y'all's dissection of it.
No, I think those. This is crazy to say this. Those 5, like, let's just say it was 7 minutes. That was spectacular. Like, it was perfection. There was absolutely like nothing I would change about it. This scene was phenomenal. Just seeing them basically like scaling up this ice mountain. But it's very hard when you find a show and you watch like the first little bit, and it's like it just captures you. To the point which like silly things which shouldn't like capture you, and like you shouldn't be like, oh man, that's amazing. The intro to this, like the intro to like just the normal intro, which 30 seconds if that, was beautiful, like phenomenal. Like and I think you're right, like the choreography in this and the way like with that, like I think it was, what is it, like an ice troll or an ice golem, whatever
Ice troll.
Ice troll. Okay. When the way that ice troll first comes out and all that, and just the way like she moves around it and ends up like killing, like it's perfection. Like and it's hard for me to understand that, because this is a TV show, and usually in TV shows you find issues with it and you still get through because you like the whole concept of it. But when you talk about a perfect intro, like this was it for me. Like this is like the new standard of what a pilot episode should be. Not just like first 5, but the whole pilot episode, because this was, you were engaged with this character from within a few seconds of the scene starting. Like when she makes the little boat and then that boat turns into like little crane, like instantly, like you are like, you feel for her. And with like what the other kids end up, I think they were throwing rocks at the boat and all that. Like it's very hard for a show to just capture you so quickly and so effortlessly, and they did it. Like it was phenomenal. Bump, Mike, what do you think?
Like, yeah, I'm not. So the thing, I'm still processing it. It just kind of like, as like Lord of the Rings fan, I went in this blind. Like I saw one trailer. I think it was the Super Bowl trailer, and that was it, right? And I didn't want to be kind of visualized through stuff like that. When you get to stuff like Sauron, stuff I've seen plenty of times, right? But now we kind of see in a different lens of like almost people think he's just a myth or yeah, he's long gone. And also seeing the elves where like you always see them as warriors, and now just like, no, the fight is over. What are you talking about? So it's like, all right, like, and then as a viewer, like, wait, are these actually elves? The elves I remember,
Mm-hmm.
So and then yeah, and then it just like, I like how we get through some things that sceneries that we feel like, okay, I'm at home now, right? And while I was watching it, and then we got Orlando Bloom cousin in there, and I think that was very good that they brought him back, or at least or someone. I'm sorry, this is someone that looks like him. It's Orlando Bloom. Like, I mean, it's basically the same. Look exactly like him. Don't tell me he didn't get cast. He look just totally slimmer. I forgot what the character's name. But yeah, but no, it was good. It just the costume design of this. Just, I'm sitting here, I'm like, are we in like these flowers around here? I know they ain't CGI. Those are real. Like, it is a wedding, and just sitting back, you're just like, what are we doing? God, watching the gates of heaven being open at the end.
Right.
It's like,
like that scene. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, I'm breaking protocol here, but that scene, when you see, I don't know if there were angels or birds. I really don't. I've seen it twice. Like when you see them just all of a sudden start to flutter through the sky, and then they look to the left, and literally the clouds part from the middle of the sky, and just is nothing but just light irradiating at them. And is drawing them in. But even the way that they did it, they took their armor off, and they're nothing but in gowns. And they use interesting exposition to explain that they're going back to their motherland. And I was kind of like, wait, what? And they're gonna live there forever? Like, I don't understand what is going on here. But it didn't matter because the visual spectacle of it, I could imagine reading something like this. You know what I'm saying? Like I think when you look at when you watch a movie, there's a good translation to, visualize what you've read and seeing it come unfolded. But a lot of times that gets missed in translation when it comes to television. But that scene, just as an example, it feels like I'm like reading these off the pages. The smallest little detail, they're taking their time with it, and they're gravitating to a lot of things with it. But this character's name is Galadriel. It's played by Mayford Clark, and she's interesting to me because when I think about elves, I think about, they're warriors, but most of the time it's like elegance. You know what I mean? Like they're presented with high status. I don't look at elves, even when I think of Legolas, I don't think, oh, okay, they've been in a lot of different wars. They're war ridden. They're dealing with emotional trauma. This even in the first episode, I've seen 3 different elves that I can identify may have legit trauma. And it's fascinating to see like that, because it's not just trauma because of circumstance, it's time. Time is
centuries
allowed like trauma to hinder them, and it's caused them to gravitate towards certain things. Every single one of these characters, either it's knowledge, either it's vengeance, or even if it's humanity, they're drawn towards something because of something that has happened to them through these centuries that they've been battling, whatever it is. And the crazy thing is, none of them have technically fought Sauron. Like, it's the remnants of evil. And that's even crazier. That's even crazier. But I think this is the character on the left you were talking about, Mike.
The one on the right. Far right. The
far
woman.
right.
Oh, they're talking about Orlando Bloom? Yes.
Yeah.
Left.
Yeah. His name is Elrond, and then the guy that's in the middle is Arondir. So it's Arondir, Elrond, and I'm going to pronounce her name so wrong. I apologize, you guys. Galadriel.
Yeah.
But we can take Arondir. So Arondir, he was assigned to a designated location, and he's kind of watching the watch, and he doesn't know that the war is about to end. He's kind of like searching. He's noticing certain things, like it seems like there's a decay with certain like crops. He's noticing there's a spread of disease going on. He's really trying to figure out what may be going on, but you can tell that he also has a love for a human woman that has a son. What did you guys think about that small little storyline and just him introduced as a character? Because it reminded me of The Mandalorian a little bit. I don't know why. That was the kind of vibe I got from him. But what would your take on his character?
Well, I mean, he came in cloaked in there and just almost in a slightly like cantina type of environment, whatever there, but asking about, troubles and stuff going on in the area and everything like that. And I thought his presence that, the or like type of gravitas he had, really to me that I felt like I was more like attracted to this character, in terms of like moving forward. But then the relationship with this woman, again, is kind of going against the grain again of the elves tradition,
Yeah.
So it's like that's again, this show's flipping, going against boundaries in terms of like, hey, listen, we got, we're going against traditions of elves, in the terms of just the Tolkien lore of in Lord of the Rings and everything. So I just thought that was very interesting, and I know it's going to have huge ramifications because you have someone who's like old for centuries, and this person's mortal, like, so that just adds a lot of complications just in general with that concept. So yeah.
What about you, Jorge?
Yeah, I think something that is, so I really enjoy his character, but I think something that, Mike, you kind of touched on it a little bit. I think the way that this show is going to depict time is going to be so interesting because there's a couple lines and a couple parts, and it'll come out when we do our discussion for episode 2, but there's a couple lines that just truly like hit me to the core when You hear kind of like an elf who, you know, those elves live to about like 500 years old, you know, and then talking to, you know, different races and how that can play out in the big picture, you know, because time for an elf is very different than, for example, like a human. So I think that this will be a very interesting and unique relationship on what could happen there. Because I can foresee, you know, something bad happening to his love interest, and then obviously, I mean, they don't say how old he is, but he'll still have easily at least 2 centuries to avenge whatever happens. Because when you kind of put those three images together there, you know, each of them kind of have their own unique story arc and unique I don't want to say trauma that they're holding, but you can tell they're all on very distinct missions. And yet they, you know, it'll just be interesting kind of seeing how they all get intertwined and, you know, interweave together. So no, I'm very excited for his character and his story arc. And you know, he definitely seems like he's going to be very much a hardcore warrior type of person. And I'm excited to see him just go wild for a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's a good segue of the different story threads and them fitting together. I mean, technically, we've only seen the first episode and we're talking about this. I've seen the second episode, so has Jorge, but it reminds me even now of how Stranger Things blueprint is, where Stranger Things, you have characters that you start to immediately gravitate towards. You're like intrigued, you're interested, and then their world starts to get shaken up. But then it's all connected to a focal point. And they've done that in the first episode with ease, and still allowed progressive pacing and still did time jumps. They did the time jump so well that I'm not going to throw shade at another series, but
I did.
It's night and day. That's all I'm going to really say. But they've taken small little characters. Like they took a small little Hobbit girl who's just, you know, navigating around with her kin and her sisters and trying to just be there for them. And all of a sudden the little girl sees like a footprint. And you're like, flip, what is that? Is it a orc? Is it a wolf? You don't know. But all you know is you get something from her character that she has enough wherewithal to not make them panic and have them leave in a safe, confined way, meaning that you already know she's a leader. You already know that she cares about people. You already know she's smart, but you also are intrigued to see why is she in this? Because I'm assuming she's a hobbit. I think that's what the race is. Me and Jorge kind of talked around it, but there's something that happens in the second episode that lead us to believe that these are early versions of hobbits.
Yeah.
Even the way they kind of describe like the bigger people. But just using her as an example and her family around her, like that's its own little piece of world that's going on. But you can tell it's going to progress quite naturally, given how it ends with literally, we think a comet shooting through the sky that everybody sees, all the different characters see it, but it ends up right next to where she is, and you see like a man there. And I know, Mike, I don't know if you have any suspicions on who it could be or what it is, but when that happened, what was going through your mind when you see the comet going through, but then when it landed and you saw a human, what was your immediate thoughts?
I was like, "What is this?" Like, I was just like, "Who?" I was like, literally, I was waiting for like, "Oh, there's the ring!" You know, Lord of the Rings, you know, like, but I was like, "No, I don't think that's how it was forged, right?" So I was like, um, so yeah, I thought that was gonna happen, but to get the Green Lantern ring coming down anyway, you know, but no, that's not. This man that pop up, I'm like, okay, where is it? Someone sent from as like from Sauron and everything as a way, because when he entered, you saw the environment and going to also the same thing. The older brother was talking to his sisters, like, how do you can float? You know, when dark, you can't really know unless you know you've been touched by darkness. And then that scene of the leaf, been spreading by darkness is the same way when he was in that. If you the imagery of it, like when he was in there, the print like it was all flames, but still feel like it was branching off from that person. So in any way, insinuating he is darkness or something, like that's going to eventually spread. So I thought that for just watching that as someone who have not seen the upcoming episode, whatever, that's just that scene, me just paying attention. Like that's what I kind of prefer what they're doing.
No, I think that's a good assessment. That's why I wanted to ask your opinion because we've seen the second episode. So I'm not gonna save my thoughts on it, but I was curious your perspective on where you saw it. But I think it was even more interesting going back to Galadriel. She kind of was willing to give up her cause. She was kind of like told by this young man here who was actually the young Ned Stark in another show, ironically.
Yes.
Which is crazy. He had a conversation with her and they have some kind of past. But he let her know very quickly, like, no, you've been fighting for a very long time, and the king is granting you grace to move forward, to move on, so to speak, forever. And all of your men are going to be able to be blessed with the same exact opportunity. And she needs to stop looking for Sauron. And she even said, I think she acted it very well. She was like, well, how can I believe that it's gone? It's not gone here. And she's pointing to her heart.
Therapy.
And I thought it was, yeah, you did say that. But I think it's deeper than that because she feels like something is still there. It's not just an instinct. It's not just like the trauma behind it. She feels like something is amiss. And I think honestly, all of the different characters feel like something is off, but only her is pinpointing it because it is the root of her trauma for sure, but she just can't shake it.
Shit.
It's always there for some reason. And even she found like the logo. She found the logo in the location.
And just pour water and how it burnt. It just that was again visual effects done in a unique way of just like what the lighting, all the stuff. Seeing that as a water hit, it's still like it's burning. It's like again, I thought that was really good. What they did there, but
yeah, and she brought that to the king, and as she gets thrown, not thrown, they send her away. He mentions to Aaron like, yeah, she's not wrong, but we can't cause more panic by stirring the pot. And in his perspective, the more you talk about Sauron, the more you add to his legacy.
Yeah.
But I mean, you can't avoid a conflict like that. But I was curious y'all's perspective on the way that they introduce Elrond as a character, as well as the elves in general. Like, what was your take on their place in this episode?
Yeah, I think this episode focused a lot on the elves more than anything, and I think this was basically like I'm gonna butcher her name, Galdered. Is that it? No, whatever.
I don't. Yeah, Galadriel.
We'll call her, yeah, Galdered.
Gal. We'll call it Gal.
I think this character or this basically focused on her the most. And it's going to be interesting because I feel although everybody had almost equal parts into the story, in terms of like screen time and getting to know it, for me, I was most attracted to her story, and it could have just been the intro because once you have an intro like that, you just kind of gravitate towards that. But I think I'm intrigued to see how they're going to start kind of mending all the other races. So like, the elves, you have the hobbits, and just when they start introducing all them, you're going to almost, I don't want to say see a hierarchy, but almost see a class within everybody, like you obviously have your warriors, you have like your tanks type of people. So it's going to be interesting to see once everything starts blowing up, because I am intrigued once. I'm trying to think how to phrase this. Basically, a lot of these characters are going to cross paths sooner than later, and it will be very unique to kind of see how they join together and what type of dynamics they will have, because realistically now we're seeing multiple characters' story, but it's all separate. And I think, at least for me with Lord of the Rings, whenever I think about it, it's always a team mentality, and in a weird way, it's like you always had like your little clumps of teams. So for me, it's just going to be interesting to see how they gel together. And then, I mean, realistically, you have just, with the elves at least, I mean, you basically have 3 alphas, and it'll be neat to see how they all kind of work together. Obviously, one is a lot more caring and I think more understanding to his emotions and all that. You have one who obviously is just basically like a warrior princess, just out to do her thing.
She's a whole pound.
Yeah. So I think it's going to be fascinating how they intertwine these stories at the end of the day.
Yeah. I think we pretty much kind of pulled the lid on everything for the most part. If you guys had anything that we didn't talk about, and then closing thoughts, and then rating. Mike, you go first.
I'm just trying to I'm writing my notes down, just kind of jotting things down here. Like
this man making a whole diagram.
Yeah. You say what was the ranking out of what?
Oh, you can do 1 to 10. It's real simple for me.
Visually, I'm not going to try to jump to say 10. Story wise, still, I think obviously it's too much predetermined. How I see next episode, whatever. I know I pulled the flag down. We'll put it back up. No disrespect to another show, but I'm gonna probably give maybe a 7 out of 10 or so, just because of I don't want to get my hopes too high. Because also there's a thing where you can be visually good, and it becomes almost visual diarrhea, but no story behind it. That I've seen in other previous projects before, so I want to make sure I don't get my hopes too high. Which is why I put it at 7, or I'll say 7.5 for that.
Okay. No, that's fair. I was gonna say, if you want to, you can recount your vote until you've seen the second episode. If you want to.
Yeah, I think I would like to do that.
Yeah, because I mean, to be fair, we looked at both episodes back to back, and then we, I think we gave our review number for that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't have a stake in it. I already said 10 out of 10 all the way.
Uh-huh.
I
agree with you.
I don't really have anything negative to talk about.
Me either.
And I think that's where I'm at. As a pilot, I still haven't recovered from the realization that this is just a pilot. You know what I mean? We looked at episode 1 and 2, and then we're ready to keep going. I'm where's episode 3? But we didn't take a second to stop. And that's why I like doing this discussion, is that as a pilot, I was kind of there was no way I was oh man, Lord of the Rings is going to be visually good, but I didn't think it was going to be I'm as engaged as I am with anything Game of Thrones. You know what I'm saying? Game of Thrones and what they've done. We are doing a discussion on House of the Dragon, and I'm there for it. Me and Jorge are there for it. But after watching this, I did not expect it to be on this level. I didn't.
Yeah.
I just didn't.
I think it's going to be interesting to kind of, and I hope it doesn't happen, because right now we're very blessed, and
we are so
in the time we live. And I feel this is going to turn into the DC and Marvel type of hate, where you're either going to be DC or Marvel. And for me, I'm just happy we got cartoon, movies on these comics that I used to read and all this. Visual, and like Sam said, I rated this a 10, period. In terms of a pilot episode, there was nothing that I could fault this thing on. It was that good. I think the only thing that I'm fearful of is when your first 2 episodes, or even just this first episode, is this good. I hope they can just keep building on this. Obviously, I mean, one of the things we joked about, you can tell where the budget went into. Budget wise, this was probably the prettiest show we've seen. Where you can pause it just about at any moment, and that could be a screensaver, and you would be perfectly happy with it. Like it's stunning how they shot this and some of the cues that they made. But no, I think right now as episode 1 only, you know, not even including episode 2, like this is straight fire. Like this is a 10. Like I am blown away, you know, by how good this was.
Same. I don't have anything more. I'm excited for Mike to see the second episode, which he's gonna probably see. We'll be back a little bit later on to do a discussion, but you guys will be watching it in real time. I don't know if we're gonna release it back to back or if we're gonna release it one day, the day after. But make sure you like, subscribe, hit the bell button. Mike, where can everybody find your content, sir?
You can find me on Jedi Mike 7 on YouTube. That's here handle right there. There you can find my content there. And you also see me on this platform as well.
Sweet Christmas. Yeah, we're gonna go. Make sure you like, subscribe, hit the bell button. Jorge will be back for more Game of Thrones. Nat will be back for more Lord of the Rings, and I will be drifting all over the place. So we're gonna go. Peace, people.